Think we should be live now. All right, hey folks, hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing good. This is Vihar. I am developer relations engineer at Appsmith. So today I'll be your host for the third edition of How Do I Do X, and we have Pranav who had joined us to also walk us through some of the interesting questions around Appsmith. We will start the stream in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, you can introduce on the chat, say where you are joining from, and also tell us the time. Uh, right now, I am joining from Hyderabad. It's around 10:30 p.m. here. So, Pranav, where are you
Yeah,
joining from?
I'm joining from Goa. Yay, party. So you might hear some background, but music, but it's fine, I guess. We'll all party.
All right, awesome. What folks who are in India, you should definitely visit Goa if you haven't. That's really a beautiful place. All right. So let me quickly give you a quick brief around how and what we'll discuss in this How Do I Do X session. So Pranav here, he's basically heading our A4's team. The basic goal is to give the best support for the entire community. So in case if you are building apps on Appsmith and if you are stuck with any small questions related to JavaScript, related to product platform, or in case if you find any bugs, we usually chat on Discord related to them. We help you build your internal tools. So that is how it works, the entire efforts team. So for this How Do I Do X session, we basically pick a bunch of frequently asked questions from all the sources, Discord, Discourse, and also sometimes we see some questions on YouTube. So we basically, make a cool Appsmith app and share them with the community. So as to help you build your best internal tools. So today the theme will be building an app around Zoho CRM. After that, we'll be building an app around Stripe APIs. So I think this is the first time we are doing a tutorial with a payment integration gateway. But I think our co-founder Nikhil had given a presentation at a different conference using Razorpay, which is also a payment integration gateway. But today I'll give you a quick walkthrough on how you can add payment integration on Appsmith apps. And next, Pranav will be talking about a few cool functions around Appsmith where you can use them while building forms. So these functions are basically around reset widget. So we will talk in depth regarding this once we start the presentation. All right, conference says, hey, conference. We miss you on the stream, but I think the community will definitely love your stream the coming week. Uh, all right, I think we can get started. Let me quickly share my screen. Okay, this time I'm actually trying a dual monitor setup. So just in case if I do anything bad, please let me know. All right, think I'm sharing the right screen.
Yes, you are.
All right, let me also zoom this a bit so that you won't miss anything here. All right, cool. So these are the three things that we will be talking about in this stream. So the first one is the Zoho CRM integration. Folks, so in case if you have any questions, feel free to drop them on the chat. We will either answer them while we are doing the demo, or we will be very happy to answer them at the end of the session. But be it related to this particular demo or related to the product, feel free to drop in your questions on the chat. And also the application will be available for you at the end of the session, so you can fork this app and test it out yourself around all these things. Like you can have a forkable Zoho CRM integration, you can have a Stripe app, and then you'll also have this cool functions guide where you can use them in future. So I'll also be dropping you the link of this app at the end of the session, which you can fork it under your own organization. All right, so let's get started. So the first one is Zoho CRM. So this is all made with an Appsmith. All the cool UI you are looking at, but I'm pretty sure with our theming feature coming out soon, these apps will be much more beautiful. Yeah, so stay tuned for that announcement. But for today, this is how the most of the presentation will look like. All right, so let's get started. So the first app, as I said, we will be integrating APIs from Zoho CRM, and then we'll be building a small app with an Appsmith. So I have documented all the steps in case if you want to go through them later. But this is how your apps look like. So I'll tell you what exactly Zoho CRM is, and I'll also tell you how you can integrate these APIs onto Appsmith. But this is like a quick overview of what I'll be demoing you today. So you'll basically pull down all your contacts from Zoho CRM, this customer relationship management manager. So this data is all the dummy data which exists on Zoho CRM. But if you add any data onto your CRM, the APIs will also pull down that data. So if you click any contact, so this will be redirected to a different page where you will see all the tasks related to a particular customer and all the customer details listed on an Appsmith app. And then you will see all the attachments that were linked to this particular contact. So all this is basically available on the Zoho CRM app as well. But the main idea is how you can extend this, with different functionalities. So today Zoho CRM cannot directly integrate with S3. It cannot directly integrate with different email platforms. So you can, or say if you want to connect Zoho CRM with any other payment integration gateways. I mean, say if you want your customers to pay directly from your own custom platform, you can do with an Appsmith. So the idea is basically creating an extension of Zoho CRM data with Appsmith. So that is what Appsmith gives you. So let's see how you can integrate APIs from Zoho CRM. So for folks who are new to Zoho CRM, so Zoho CRM is a single repository to bring your sales, marketing, customer support activities. So this is like a basic marketing CRM, which is famous. And so this we had couple of requests from our community around how people could integrate these APIs onto Appsmith. So that's the reason we had selected this topic. All right. So as you can see here, you can use Appsmith to extend data, extend your apps, extend data from Zoho CRM in two different ways. We'll also talk about a few different use cases at the end of the session. So you can go to the website from this button, and I've also given the documentation link. So today we will be using this as the main reference, and then we'll be using these particular REST APIs and then connect them with Appsmith. All right. Uh, so how do you connect these APIs from Zoho CRM to Appsmith is the big question. So Zoho CRM API uses OAuth 2 protocol, I think which most of the developers are familiar with. So this is a protocol that enables third-party applications to gain delegated access via APIs. So you can't directly access all your APIs from your authenticated account onto Appsmith. But instead you will need to use an OAuth 2 based authentication in order to access your Zoho CRM data onto Appsmith. So that is how it works. And today we are going to show you how you can use OAuth 2 based APIs and bind them onto Appsmith. So we have broken down this entire process into 4 simple steps. So this step 1 is basically you'll have to register your client application on the Zoho CRM platform. So you can do
Vihar,
this.
can you, sorry, can you please zoom in a little more?
All right, I'll just zoom this in.
Yeah,
Is this
nice.
okay?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
perfect.
awesome. Thanks for that. All right. So the first step is basically you'll have to register your client application. So for this, you'll have to navigate to apiconsole.zoho.in. So this is where you can create specific apps from where you can access Zoho CRM data. So you can either go to this or click this cool button on Appsmith. So this is where you'll need to create client applications on Zoho CRM. So I've already created one. So basically you'll need to hit add client, and then you'll have to choose server based application. So this is this with this you'll be generated a client ID and a client secret with which we will be accessing the APIs, which I'm going to talk about in the next steps. But this is where you'll have to create and developer app first on Zoho CRM. So moving on, the second step will be to enter the following credentials on the Zoho CRM. So while creating your client, you'll need to give client name. This can be based on your choice. You can call it Appsmith Zoho, or you can just call it Appsmith. And then you'll have to tell to which pages you are going to use the Zoho CRM API. So for that, you will be just adding app.appsmith.com as the homepage URL, and then authorized redirect URIs as app.appsmith.com/API/data source. So authorization basically gives you access to specific things on the Zoho CRM. So you'll need to add this particular URL while creating your applications. So this process is quite similar when you are doing it on the Google, when you are trying to use Google APIs or Zoom APIs. So most of these platforms, they use OAuth2 based authentication in order to use that particular data onto different platforms. So this is how you basically do it with the other platforms as well.
So when you get started, you don't need to have your application specific URL. This authorization URI would simply work, right?
Right. Yes. So you can also find these. I mean, you need not copy paste directly from here. You can also find this while you are creating a data source on
Oh,
your apps with. But then first you'll have to create your app just to have your client ID and client secret. So after you create your app, so you'll basically have two variables, which is basically the client ID and client secret, with which your APIs will be given access to.
okay.
Uh, all right. So moving on, we'll go to step 3, which is to create a data source on Appsmith. This is like super easy with all the cool UI on Appsmith. So first, let me quickly show you how you can do that. So first, you go to queries, you go to data sources and hit this plus icon, and then you select an authenticated API. So here you will see different options based on the type of authentication you wanted to add to the API. So let me quickly select this. So you will see a data source being created here. It will ask you for an URL to which you want to access, and then you will see the authentication type here. So right now it says none, but we are going to use OAuth2 based authentication type. So you can choose OAuth 2.0 from here, and then you will see all the different variables and different configurations that you will need to do it. All right. So this is how you create a data source on Appsmith. So you basically choose authenticated API from the data source list, and then you set the authentication type to OAuth 2.0. Uh, so this is the base URL on which you'll have to access all the data from the Zoho CRM. So you basically give the base URL, when you are creating a data source. So this URL will be extended to different things, like if at all you wanted to fetch contacts, you'll use the space URL and say /contacts. If at all you are if at all you want to fetch accounts, you will use the space URL and you'll say /account. So you'll have to set this URL type onto the data source here in the URL field. So next, you have the access token URL. So this is the URL that generates a token which is authorized via your account. So you basically so you set the grant type to authorization code, and you set the add access token to request header. So whenever you are hitting an authenticated API or requesting for an authenticated API, so this particular token will be already added to header. So you need not reauthorize it multiple times. If you authorize it one time, you can access all the APIs because it will automatically add that particular code into the header. So you basically set your token to this particular URL. So all this you can find it on Zoho documentation as well, which I'm going to show you now. And then you copy the client ID and client secret from the API client that you created. So basically these use with client ID, client secret. Lastly, it's very important to access different kinds of using platforms like let's so access to.
Vihar, you're lagging a bit. Can you please turn off your camera and try again?
Uh, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible now.
Pranav, can you hear me? Can
Yes,
anyone in the chat
yes.
let?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I see some error on saying my internet is poor. Okay, I got it fixed now. Sorry about that. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So
You
scope
should
basically gives you
turn
access.
off the camera.
Yeah, I'll probably turn
Yeah,
off my camera and then.
yeah.
All right. So
That would
scopes
improve the quality.
basically give you access to particular, modules in your API. So I've added two scopes here. But in case if you wanted to access different, modules in Zoho, you can always, add, your other scopes, separating them with a comma. So you can list all, you can view the different scopes that are listed in the documentation here. So right now I'm using the settings module and the modules scope here. All right, let me go back to my Appsmith app. All right, so after you add your scope, you set the authorization URL, which basically gives permissions to the selected scopes. And after you add all your data, you will just need to save your data source and reauthorize it. So I'm going to quickly go back to my data source and reauthorize it for you. So this is my Zoho CRM data source. And if I click on edit, you will see my URL, you will see my authentication type as OAuth 2.0, you will see my grant type as authorization code, my access token, client ID, and client secret from the client app on Zoho CRM dashboard. And then I'm trying to access the modules and the settings from scope. And after all this is done, I just hit save and reauthorize. So this will go to my Zoho account and it will ask me the permissions to which I've added scopes to. So basically, so it says full access to read, create, update, delete resources in module. So make sure you're logged in with the same account that you have created your client app. So I've created with my Appsmith account. So make sure you to create it with the same account on the Zoho CRM side. So after all this is done, you'll quickly hit accept, and then this should authorize. This should create an authorized OAuth to data source with Zoho CRM. So that is how it goes. Now let's go back to step 4. And yeah, so this is where you can start using APIs because your data source is ready, and then you can find all the Zoho CRM API docs in this particular link. Okay, I think there's an issue here, but let me quickly show you. Yeah, so this is the API documentation. For example, if you want to fetch any modules, you can use via this API. To fetch all the users, you can use this particular API, and like, but make sure you also have to add the scopes before you access this. All right. So now let's quickly see how to bind APIs onto Appsmith. So for that, let me switch to the editor mode. Okay, I have switched back to the editor mode, and then I've created an API called get contacts. So this is an API created from the Zoho CRM data source. If you just hover on this, you will see that this API is created from the data source I've just created. And so I'm now trying to access all the contacts from my Zoho CRM. So this is how the CRM looks like. Let me quickly open that as well. Um, okay, access Zoho CRM. All right, so these are all the contacts on my CRM, and now I'll be displaying all these contacts onto the Appsmith app that I've created. So you have these names, Chris, Tolner, Kapla, and then so I have my API, get contacts. This is my authenticated API here. And then if I say run, you will see the entire response in the response pane. So basically you have your contact and all the details that are linked with your contact in the response pane. So going back, now I've dropped in a cool list widget. So this is basically a list widget here. And then I've binded my API onto this list widget. So the way you do it is you go to widgets and simply search for list and then drag and drop onto the canvas. So I did the same here, and then this is how I have binded my API. So get contacts.data accesses the API data, and since it is a nested one inside the data variable, I am just flattening my data out using one more variable data. But this is super convenient. You'll have the entire result inside the evaluated plane, so as to understand how your data looks like. So here in my case, it will be get contacts dot data dot data. So on list item, so you can access individual items in an array using the current item attribute. You need not do it multiple times. If you just configure one particular list item, it replicates to all your list items. And this is super cool because it comes with pagination, and uh, no matter how much data you have on your CRM, this will load in a smoother way because of the pagination. So this is how I was able to fetch all my contacts. So similarly, so I'm trying to view my contacts and then try to add some attachments and tasks to that particular contact. So let me quickly see what's there in this the other page. So in my other page, I am trying to access three things. One is the activities from the particular contact, the attachments from the particular contact. So the data is basically the entire contact information. So the way I am linking from home page to contact is using URL params. So if you see here, if I select the first contact, Chris Marrier, so this will take me to a detail page containing all the details of only Chris Marrier, but not Sage. So the way I do it is, so while clicking this button, you use the nav2 function, and you also send a query parameter called ID. So this ID is basically the contact ID that I have listed down here. So list one dot selected ID gives me the ID of this particular user. So I'm querying this particular ID on the other page. So you can access data from one page to other using the query params or by using the store value function that comes with Appsmith. So if you click on the view contact here, you can see my URL. So it added this ID parameter, and then this particular ID is being used by all the three APIs. So if you go to this particular API, it will say you can access this particular query param by using Appsmith context object, which is appsmith.url.queryparam.id. So you can also run this API and then test it out. Right now, I've just moved from a different API. That's the reason you're not seeing the API. But here, this is how it works. All right. So this is again similar. I've binded couple of things to just help you understand how the entire APIs thing works. So I have three APIs. I have binded all the activities on a different list widget. I have binded attachments on a different table widget. So the way you do it is you simply drag and drop things on AppSmith, and then you attach a particular query onto that widget. So similarly, you can just create any contact here. For example, say if I create an activity, then you can see them reflected onto the app platform. So this is on a higher level on how you can integrate with Zoho CRM. So this is just like a demo application, but you can extend this into multiple ways. You can connect this with S3 and add files to your Zoho via S3. You can have some email automations using our SMTP plugin. But this is how you can get started with Zoho CRM. So in case if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now with respect
Yes,
to CRM.
I I have a small question. So once you sign up on Zoho, so let's say I don't have any data with me, right? So does Zoho provide a sample database
Correct,
for me to
correct.
work with?
So all the things that you are seeing right now is being rendered from the sample database that Zoho had given. So this all this data is basically
Mhm.
set up by Zoho after you sign up. But you can always delete them and add your own
Okay,
data while you start using it. But today, whatever you see right now on the platform is basically the data that is seeded by Zoho CRM itself.
okay, okay.
Right. So S has a question. He asks, how can we handle the refresh tokens related to authentication? Is there a tutorial for the workflow? So for that, while you are doing with OAuth 2, there is a specific time period for which your tokens exist, and after the time period, your tokens expire. So in my case, I have set the token time to 1 hour. So after 1 hour, if I try to access these APIs, they won't work. Everything will be all the APIs will be giving a 404 error. So you'll have to reauthorize this again and then get a new refresh token. So that is how it works. But Pranav, do you want to answer how we can handle the refresh tokens?
Yes. So all of these services have an API which you can directly, call and give them your existing token, and then they'll give you a refresh token back. Right. So I'm not aware of the API suite that Zoho provides, but if there is such an API, you can authenticate that. So you can use that. So what you should do in such cases is you should run your API, the refresh API on page load. What that will do is that will figure out if the current token that you have is valid or not. If it is not valid, it will ask you to authorize, or it will authorize on its own, because you have that token, right? So that's how it goes. I'll have to look into like the whole suite to figure out if that's possible on Zoho. If that is, our team will build an application, which you can, then fork and use.
All right. Thanks for that, Pranav. All right. So S has one more question. Zoho can be self-hosted too. I don't think so. Zoho is not an open source software. Uh, so there is this another platform called Udo, which I'm also not familiar with. But in case if it's open source, we are definitely going to check it out soon. We'll see if there is any possible use case where you folks can be benefited from connecting those APIs onto Appsmith, and then we'll definitely come up with some cool tutorial or like a live session. But we have been requested on how you can connect Zoho CRM API. So that's the reason we are doing this today. All right. So moving on, let's go back to our table of contents here, and then we have our very cool Stripe integration. I mean, this is not an integration. So this basically, let me quickly zoom out and show you this. All right. So this basically creates a new, links where you can do payments. Like for suppose, suppose you are a small business, or you are managing multiple contacts and wanted to do transactions with them. You can generate unique payment links with Stripe using Appsmith, and then you can share those links with your customers via email on Appsmith. So this is a basic use case on how you can extend this app. But today I'm gonna show you how you can generate payment links, unique payment links, with the data that you have provided on Appsmith. So for folks who don't know about Stripe, so Stripe is a suite of payment APIs that power your e-commerce, or any kind of business of all sizes. So you can go to the API documentation. Let me just so this is the documentation that we will be using in order to integrate these APIs onto Appsmith. But before you do this, you'll also have to create an account on Stripe, and then run this on a dev mode. The reason why I'm telling you is this, because all your payment links or all your transactions, they will be only verified after you give your bank details, after you do your entire KYC, or else you will see, or else the workflow still works, but then you will see everything in test mode. None of your transactions will be going to succeed. So let me quickly log in to my Stripe account. Hope my password is correct. Um, all right, it's loading up. Okay, cool. So I've logged in. You can create your free account and then go to your dashboard. So we'll have to, so Zoho CRM, we have seen how we have to configure OAuth 2 based APIs. But Stripe, you can just do it directly with bearer token based authentication. So your token will be generated directly by Stripe, and all you need to do is just use the secret key and send it as a header, send an authorization header with this particular token. So make sure you create this token, and you'll also need to have this publication key. So this is how you can get them. But as you can see, my account is not activated, so this Appsmith account is still in dev mode. But in order to have like a successful transactions, like a proper transactions, make sure you fill all your bank details, all your uh, information, and other stuff. All right, so moving back to our demo. So this is how our app looks like. So you have your product name, you have your product price, you can set the quantity. So after your payment is successful, you can redirect to an Appsmith page, or else the page you wanted to show. So you can add your success URL here. In case if the transaction has failed, you can also add an cancel URL here. So you can set the capture method to auto. So this is just to take the form details, and then this is a sample link that is already generated. But if I refresh this app, you will see an empty form there. So the way it works is you basically give all the details. So let me zoom in a bit so that you all can see this part. Right, so let me say Apple iPad, and then I'm gonna give it a price of $700, and then I'm giving quantity one. So I'm doing the transaction in USD, and if I say generate here, so this should be able to generate a payment link. And if I click this button, visit via Stripe checkout, and this should take me to my Stripe session. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to show you what APIs you will need to use for getting this done. So as you can see, you are paying for the Apple iPad, which I've created just now, and which I've set to $700. I'm not sure if you can buy an iPad for $700. Cool. But as I said, so this is in the test mode. In order to make this completely work, you'll have to add in all your details on this Stripe dashboard. So the way it works is super simple, super easy, thanks to Stripe APIs. So you only have single API post request, which is called Stripe sessions. So let me go to the docs quick. Um, so you can search for Stripe session API, and then this is the API I'll be using. So session essentially creates a transaction session where you can complete your payments based on the details you given. So this is the endpoint that you will be using, checkout sessions, and so this is the API. As you can see, I have directly entered the API, and so okay, I'm not going to show you my token here, but this is how you use bearer token based authentication. So it's just a one step process. You add the authorization key, and you have this key called bearer, and you add a space, and then you paste the token from the Stripe dashboard. All right, I think so that token you can, okay, I think I'm in the wrong page. Okay, so you'll need to go to the dashboard and then bring this particular Stripe key in place of the bearer token. So that is how it works. So this particular key here. All right, so this key you'll basically use it on the uh, hierarchy. All right, never mind. Cool. So after you hit run, so the way we collect the data is directly, from the form URL encoded. So you basically pass in all the attributes, and you are taking your inputs via the mustache binding. So success URL input is basically, this is basically, from this particular form. So your product name, which is named as name input. So this particular name will be passed, um, okay, with this particular key. So all the attributes can be found on the documentation itself. This is a bit clumsy at this point, but then we'll be soon working on a super cool template where you can simply replace your API key, and then build out your extensible apps. So after you create it, so this will be giving an URL. So this is the URL that we wanted to use. So in order to access your response, and in order to access your URL, uh, all you need to do is you say stripe session, which is my API, and you say dot data. So this particular thing will give the data of the response, and then from my response I wanted my URL, which is my checkout link. So I am just binding that onto another input widget, and this particular button, it takes the input, and then navigates to, I the page URL is basically set to this particular input, which is generated URL, and then as you click this, it goes to my iPad checkout link. So this is how it works. It's super simple, but I'm pretty sure that we'll be soon building out a cool template for you to quickly run this. And we are also, for folks who are in India, there is this payment gateway called Razorpay, which we are also trying to come up with a cool template, and then plug and play it directly with your application. But this is how you can add payment, or transaction related APIs onto Appsmith. All right, so let me see if we have any questions. Okay, I see a question from S. In case, yeah, in case we need to generate a payment link, I mean dynamically. So this is generated dynamically. I mean, you enter your details, like this is a new session created by Stripe itself.
I guess they're asking if, like, what are the use cases in which we need to generate a dynamic link.
Got
Um,
it.
yeah.
You want to
So
go ahead?
yes, yes, sure. Think of it this way: products, what they do is they integrate a payment gateway in their own product, but uh, sometimes if that is failed and you reach out to their support team saying, hey, the payment gateway is not working for some reason, what they can do for you is handle all those requests. So you tell them what you want to buy, what service you want to buy, what product you want to buy, and then they'll generate a unique payment link for you that is valid for say an hour. And if that payment goes through, you'll get that key by that URL by either email or SMS or whatever. So we are even coming up with an integration with Twilio. So you'll be able to send this generated URL from here to your email addresses or your WhatsApp or whatnot. Once you have that URL, you can visit that URL, you pay that, and once that is done, you can verify that payment from this screen. So right now, that integration is yet to be done on this application because this is a bare bones application. But as Vihar mentioned, our team is working hard to come up with these templates that will be plug and play, and you will be directly able to fork them into your own organizations and build on top of that. So yeah, that's how it's gonna work. But I hope I've answered your question.
All
Yes.
right. Thanks for that, Pranav. All right. I think that's it from my end. I'll head it over to Pranav, who is going to talk about some cool functions. I'm not sure if you're already aware of those, or but if you're new to the platform, you'll definitely love these cool functions within Appsmith. So let me stop sharing my screen and bring
Yeah.
Pranav's screen.
Let me share mine.
Uh, okay, I think we are able to see your screen now.
All right, nice. So the added bonus of listening to me is there might be some background music. I guess that's an added benefit. All right. So today we are going to talk about resetting a widget. All right. So we get these requests where people want to reset their widget, and they mean two different things in different contexts, right? So one interpretation of resetting a widget is basically resetting the value of that widget back to what was default value, right? So let's say there is a text widget, and the value of that widget is, say, hey, how is this, or this is an Appsmith, or how do I do X, or whatever, right? And that is the default value, and now something happens from your code, and you change value of that thing, right? And now you want to reset that value, so you call a reset function, which is a reset widget in Appsmith. The second interpretation is, I want to completely remove all the value that a particular widget has. So let's say in a form you have an input widget, right? There are two ways to look at this. You can either update a form or add a new entry, right? So let's say in the middle of editing that form, you decide to create a new entry rather than editing it. So in that particular case, you want to completely remove the input value, right? So that's the second interpretation. And now where we on our platform we have this reset widget, right? So people are confused about what it actually does. So according to the documentation, reset widget simply reverts the value of your widget back to what it was set by default, right? So this means it takes care of the uh, first use case, wherein your input widget's value was set to, say, a name field was set to Vihar, and you changed it to, say, Nikhil, and now you want to reset it. When you reset that input widget, it will go back to saying Vihar. All right. So that's the use case that this covers. And the reset children is for the compound widgets that you built. So let's say you have a form widget and you have multiple fields, right? So the form is a parent widget, and then there are input widgets inside that, right? So when you say reset children to true, what that means is if you are trying to reset the form, it will also reset all the input fields inside that form. All right. So yeah, that's how it basically works. So let's take a look at the reset widget, right? Um, so as I mentioned, um, the first use case of resetting the value back to what it was by default, right? So I'm a huge fan of Marvel, and I love the character Tony Stark, right? So I have by default added input value called Tony Stark, right? And when I reset this, nothing happens because this is set as a static value. So I'll go to edit mode and I'll show you how this whole thing works. All right. Vihar, can you see my page, or shall I zoom in?
Yeah, can you zoom in a bit?
Yes, I
Yeah, I
can.
think I think this should do.
Okay. All right. So again, I'll try to, yes, this should be fine. Okay. So the first case is you have an input widget or any widget for that matter, and you have a default value for that. So by default, this is set to Tony Stark. If I try to change this and I write Robert, so this value of input 1 is now changed to Robert. And if I reset this, this will go back to Tony Stark because input widget 1 default value is set to Tony Stark, right? And if I go to the binding that I've added for this reset button, it's pretty simple. It's just reset widget, and then I chose the widget that I wanted to reset. This can be done simply from this drop down. It says reset widget, and once you are here, you can also choose a widget name from that down as well. So this is a pretty basic case. So let's say you have a form, right? So this is another use case. And as you see, I have not changed the name of this widget. This is a form widget, right? And then there are two different children in this. One is a name field, another is a select field. So this selects the gender of, just let me scroll this up. Yeah. So this selects gender of this person. So now let's see where the values are coming from, right? So now if I go to input 3, the name input field's value is coming from the query, right? And same for this one. There are these options that are defined by that are hard coded, but the actual default value is coming from an API response, right? So if I change this male to say female, and uh, the value of the select one widget would now be female, but if I reset this, it goes back to male because the default text was again, default value was again set to gender, right? Whatever gender that is coming from the API response. And the exact same thing happens in case of, so this is a more complicated example, which is of JSON form, right? So there are a lot of fields in here, but the reset button with this would do the exact same thing. So let's say we change the country from Norway to India, and if I reset this, it will go back to saying it's Norway, right? So that's how a general reset widget, but widget functionality works, right? So what about what if you want to clear the whole field, right? You don't want Tony Stark anymore. You want it to be blank. So let's go to the, yes, this is the other interpretation, but I'd say clearing an input field and resetting an input field is the way forward to think about this. When you say clear, it will clear the field, right? We got a question from one of our community members regarding this, and they were facing an issue where they were trying to reset the form, but for some reason the values were still there. I'll show you a quick small demo of that as well. But yeah, let's go through the examples again. So this is exactly the same. I have an input widget, and now this time the default text is set to Vihar, right? And if I change this to say Nikhil, the value of input widget will be Nikhil. But if I clear this out, it goes to blank, right? And the way I've done this is basically I've I'm storing value Vihar at the page load in this store value, right? Input one default value. If I refresh this, this comes back. I'll just quickly go to the JS object that I have defined. Yes, just give me a sec. Yes. So you see, these are the async functions that I'm using to set the default values, and these default value setters are being called on page load. So once page loads and data from query one is available, this data will be this property will be set, and for this is hard coded. So Vihar will be the text Vihar Kurama will be set to the property input one default value. And once you have that, now you can use the store value to set the default value for this particular widget. And when you want to clear this value, you just have to clear the store value input one default value, and that's what I'm doing over here. If I go to button one, you see I'm setting it to an empty string. And when you say clear this field out, this will clear the whole thing. Similarly, let's just refresh that, and yeah, just a sec. Okay. So similarly over here, if I say this is Smith, but now I don't want this, right? I want to clear the whole thing. If I click on clear, everything goes away. Sorry about that. Yeah. So everything goes away, right? And this is done exactly the same way. So I have uh, earlier we had default values in store, right? But this time, for if you remember the second form, the data comes from query, right? So the query data has to go away so that the default text value should then will be empty, right? For this to be empty, the query data should go away. And there is a hidden function call that you make on query one, which is called clear. This is not available in the drop down directly if you look at this, but it is if you use it using JS, it is query dot clear, and this clears the response of the query. Once there is no response, what that means is any binding that you have on the response of that particular query will vanish, right? And because there is no data, this input field is empty now. Once I refresh the query, and basically this refresh button just fetches the data from the query, and once the data is there, you can see the data is being populated. um, right. So now this is again a bit more involved, wherein let's say you have a two-fold form, right? You have a form on top which figures out what you want to do, and based on that populates the fields below that, right? So now I've set it to update, and I want new, and once I click new, everything goes away, right? If I go back to, sorry about that, if I go back to update, the value should reappear, right? And the way I'm doing this is this form one, JSON form one is getting its source data from the default data which is stored in Appsmith store, right? And as I showed you earlier, this is happening over here. So again, this is set to, so the value of this is default form, and we are running it on page load. So when you do that, it figures out if query one is already um, has already does it have a data, and if it does, then it binds that data with the store value using store value function. Once that is there, the data will be available in your form, and JSON form widget, which we released like a couple of weeks ago, is intelligent enough to figure out, hey, you are going to need these fields, and it will generate a form for you automatically, right? So when you update this, on change of this particular select widget, I'm using reset JSON form in JS object again. And this function, what it does is it figures out if you have selected a new option. If you have, then it sets the JSON default data property from your Appsmith store to an empty object. And once that object is empty, there is no data to be, to populate this form from, right? If you take a look at this, it says empty, and that's why all the fields are empty. And if I go back to update, this action will again repopulate the property from your store to have the default data. And once the data is available to this widget, it will be populated in all the fields that are being generated over here, right? So this is pretty much it. once even like even after this you have some sort of confusion around, hey, do I need a clear widget functionality or do I need a reset widget functionality, right? Think about it this way: do you need to update something, or do you need to create something from just one form, right? If there is a need of doing this from just one form, um, like both update and create new, maybe you need to go with clear widget, which is by removing the binding itself, right? If you reset the binding value itself, you'll see empty fields like this one. And if it's the second use case where you might need to just update the data, then the way forward is reset vision. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Any questions?
Right. Thanks a lot, Pranav, for taking us through reset widget and clear widget. Even I would like to share one experience that I had. So I was actually updating a query via multi-select widget.
Uh-huh.
So I had to search through options via multi-select widget. So multi-select widgets also comes with a search bar, which is like super cool. So after updating those select options to my particular row, I had to clear that the
Yeah,
search
yeah,
thing. So there the clear widget function is like super handy, and I need not go back again and deselect those options after my query is executed.
yes.
uh, so yeah, so there are like so many functions that we are also coming up in future that
Yeah.
will make the development process much smoother. At the first I thought it was only two functions, the store value and the other one is navigate to, but we were slowly increasing the functions library also. So be sure to check out our documentation on that front. So like you can extend your apps in different ways using the power of JavaScript. So that is how you can take it forward.
Also, while we are on that topic of exploring Appsmith, I'd like to point out that just a sec, I'll share my screen again. I'd like to point out that we have docs. If you go to our docs, can you see my screen?
Just a second.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I think, yeah,
All right.
I can see your screen.
Yeah. So once you are on our doc, there is a section called sample apps, and there are ton of applications that we have already built, and we've been building these applications. Every week we sort of publish more applications. So kudos to our community on asking these questions, which then can be extended to an application, and can be shared with the other members. So I guess the fellow called Johnny raised a query about the reset widget, and that's why we are here right now, right? So shout out to you, man. Thanks for raising that query.
Yeah, and now we have a super cool documentation, a super cool app, for using this. And let me quickly make the app workable so that you can also play with it after the session is done.
I think it already is.
Okay.
I did that. Yeah.
Can you share the link on chat?
Yes, I can. Just a sec.
Right, so folks will also be dropping you the link on the Discord channel. So in case if you are not on our Discord, feel free to hop on in, tell us what you want to build with Appsmith, and in case if you have any questions, we are always here to help you out. And definitely, we are happy to answer more questions in our coming How Do I Do X session. So okay, I will now quickly share you the app. So Pranav, do you want to quickly take us through how folks can fork the app and then use it
Yes.
on their own account?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
So
So guys, I've shared you the link on chat, so you can open the application, and Pranav will be sharing you how you can fork it and then put it on your organization.
just a sec. Let
Yeah.
me create a incognito window. Yes. So let me share window incog. Okay. Share. So if I paste the URL over here, I already have access to this particular application, so that's why I'm going incognito. But let's just assume that you are a user who is accessing this app for the first time. Give it a sec. All right. So yes. So this is the application. There is a giant button over here which says Fork app, and once you click that, it will now take me to a sign up form, but this should take you to your app.appsmith.com dashboard, and from there you can select your own organization and then use it over there. So let me try and share another window, see if the other account works for this. Just bear with me here. Share, and if I paste it over here, okay, and I'm sorry about my internet.
But guys, we'll have to praise Pranav for his time, even if there are a lot of parties going on around him. So kudos to Pranav for that.
Yeah, the weather in Goa wasn't very kind today. It rained heavy. So,
Yeah, I think that's the
yeah, that's,
issue why the app is
yeah,
slowly loading. But I think after you click the four cap button,
yeah,
it should
yeah.
directly take you to the Appsmith app,
It's
and then you can choose your preferred organization to which you want to fork it to.
yeah. And if you are having problems with that, please let us know. We'll try and help you out there. It's really simple. Once you click on fork, it'll take care of itself. Yeah.
Right. So guys, we are gonna wait for a couple of minutes. So in case if you have any questions, feel free to drop it on chat. So this is like the third session me and Pranav are doing it. So we plan to host this session at the end of every month, last week of every month. So for next week, we'll have Confidence and Joseph from our DevRel team who is gonna take you through all the cool features we have shipped last month. So you are going to hear some cool updates from them next week. So do sign up for our upcoming events. You can view them on the website or on Luma/Appsmith. I'll also drop the link on the Discord channel. All right, folks. I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you in next session. But meanwhile, in case if you have any questions, just feel free to drop them in on our Discord, or we are super active on our community. Also, you can just log in at community.appsmith.com. And if you feel that your questions can be helpful for the entire community, feel free to ping me, or feel free to put a disclaimer on the issue that you're posting on community, and we would be happy to take that on the how do I do X session. And if you would like to join us for this calls, feel free to hop on in. You can drop me a message on Discord, and you can also join us and share your questions and share your cool tricks around apps with the entire community.
Yeah.
So thank you all once again. Thank you, Pranav, and
Thanks a lot.
we'll see you in the next session. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Have a nice time, guys. Bye. Cheers.